Okay, yeah. So some interesting numbers there, eh? Yeah.
Do you want to talk to Daisy about women representation?
Daisy, this is your thing, isn't it? Women.
It is, but I mean, it's really disappointing in light of the fact that we actually have a constitutional provision. So really, we should be seeing better numbers. 7 years post-promulgation, we're looking at 9%. We're regressing. I mean, definitely we have more women, you know, going for the higher seats. I mean, the governorship.
Yeah.
But remember, in 2013, we had the woman presidential candidate.
Yes.
So I think that this is a conversation that we must have as a country in terms of rule of law issues, you know, because a lot of people tend to make this about women, that women are not stepping up, but the lack of the framework has now had a ripple effect where the political parties do not, and they do not foster women's participation. When you look at the way our politics is structured, it's just not convenient.
Yeah.
It's not convenient. It's not conducive for fostering that inclusivity. But above all else, that we do not have the legislation in place. And what are the implications? We will not meet the required threshold. So what are the implications to the 12th Parliament? You know, even in terms of the constitutionality of that house.
Right.
Are we going to then encourage the kind of impunity where we're seeing where the law actually prescribes something and the lawmakers choose which aspects of the constitution they shall abide by. So that's a conversation we must have.
Yeah, definitely. So I will leave you all to it.
Why don't you put in the last bullet?
Which is?
As soon as the parliament opens, you go to court to declare it unconstitutional.
And I shall carry you along with me.
I'll be there.
Because we need the men on us, with us
As
in
many as
that
we can
fight.
get.
And I'm glad that you see that. And for me, that is the thing,
Yeah.
that the duty bearers are so irresponsible that they would actually subject the country to a constitutional quagmire simply because they refuse to move with what is envisioned in the constitution.
Right.
And for me, that says a lot. It says a lot about the 11th Parliament. It says a lot about the executive. It says a lot about the promises that were made in 2013, which were very, very clear and remain unfulfilled. And I note that, very little is being said by way of promising women anything, because what can you promise when you haven't delivered?
Yes, after that. Okay, so like I said, I want to leave you to it, but I think I will just leave with one question for Ambassador Tumwa. What is it like today? I mean, you've sat where Chebukati and the team are sitting. Must be interesting, the eve of the election, you've been in that position before. And that is where I exit as you answer that question.
I actually don't envy Chebukati, not at all.
I know, right?
He's a man now being faced with 40 plus million Kenyans.
Full of expectation.
He's faced with the entire Africa. He's faced by the Commonwealth, the Americans. The whole world is focusing on what he is going to do. What I would say is let him remain cool. Let him remain loyal to the law. And that is the only thing that can protect him. If he listens to too many people, he'll make mistakes. He knows he has worked, he has set the ball rolling. He has in terms of preparation, I think he has done reasonably well. So that is all he has to do. But there are small things like what is coming up of voters going to discover their names are not on the ballot papers.
It's actually reacted to that. I'll play
Those
that for
you a little sensitive. My hope is that when they go to check on the KIMS, those names will be found. But if we go to a station and we find 20, 30, 40 people without their names appearing, that can cause a problem.
Then we probably will have a problem. Okay, people, you're watching Kivumbi 2017. Thank you for staying with us as we let Yvonne go home. Probably she'll be with me in the graveyard shift tomorrow. Yeah. Okay, so let's play something that NASA flag bearer Raila Odinga had to say today with respect to the preparations to the election and some of the concerns that he has.
Kupitia kwa machine za kielektroniki ambayo inaitwa EVID, Electronic Voter Identification Devices. Na tukisema ikiwa kama itaharibika imeharibika, basi kura haisiendelee. Hiyo tumeambia wafuasi wetu kila mahali. Manake yale ambayo yatafanyika yalikuwa sio halali. Kwa hivyo tumemwambia ikifika hapo wakisema sasa hii mashine haifanyi kazi, basi station ifungwe mpaka marekebisho ifanyike. Hiyo ndio sheria. Given the fact that a number of these polling stations are in some of our strongholds, we don't understand how a place like Siaya, Homa Bay, Migori, and so on could be out of network. We think that this is basically something that is deliberate, is meant to do something fishy during the transmission of the results.
Allow me to reintroduce my panel. I have Daisy Mdanyi, who's the National Coordinator, Steering Women Committee. Next to her, we have Ambassador Jack Tumwa, who's a former ACK Commissioner, and Dr. Alex Awete, Director, East African Institute, Aga Khan University. Thank you for staying with me. Alex, allow me to begin with you. So Raila Odinga says if the systems fail, there will be no election.
I'm not sure, but a man of Raila's stature and his commitment to advancing democratic processes in the country, I think I take great exception at that statement, especially the timing of that. I don't think that this is a time to inflame passions, to basically throw it out there and say, we will still continue with the boycott if this doesn't work. I think the electronic voter identification device is critical to the election process. But Chebukati has said many times that they have gone to great lengths to try and make the system work so that voters can be verified. And of course, the transmission part of that is another issue for which there are contingencies by IEBC. So my point is that I don't think Raila should say that at this particular time.
Yeah.
What we should do now is basically be good Kenyans, trust the system, and basically test out the efficacy and the capability of this thing to stand all kinds of stresses and all kinds of tests. Give Chebukati and his team a chance to deliver an election as best as they can, and as citizens remain vigilant throughout the process and point out all the irregularities and have those for the record, just in case the outcomes are contested. And I think that's what Raila should say. Chebukati has talked about the satellite. He's talked about the fact that these things will be uploaded, they will be secure, and as soon as they get into a range where there's network, they will be transmitted. I would like us to take Chebukati at his word right now. This is a time to appeal for calmness and basically to accept that fundamental steps have been taken to ensure that this is a free and fair election. But I think to say that there will be a standoff because an AVD isn't working for some reason, there could be a downtime for some reason. But I don't think that that's enough for us to blow up the whole thing.
Ambassador, it's interesting that Alex mentions the fact that we need to have trust in the IEBC. Looking at the preparations, and we are just basically counting down to hours and the issues that are coming up, do you think enough has been put in place to earn IEBC the trust of Kenyans?
I trust IEBC has done what is humanly possible to get us a free, fair elections. But like Alex has said, when it comes to the equipment, there is a possibility of them failing. And I totally wanted to associate with what he's saying, that we should not use that opportunity to go for a boycott. There are other ways of getting other people from outside to come and witness the proper voting in that particular station, other than boycott. Boycott will mess up the whole thing. Let them have a mechanism where if they fail in one station, perhaps what can be sent around to get, Raila can send his agents to witness the voting so that we go through. If it is delayed for a few hours, so long as the voting continues in that particular place, I think that may be the best way to get out of it. So boycott is not the way to go? Boycott is not an answer to our problem.
Daisy?
I agree. I think we've got to be very careful with what kind of statements are made at this point in time, and that given the kind of support base he has and the kind of following, I think that the Right Honourable Raila Odinga should be careful with what he says, because we all know technology does fail. Not intentionally. I mean, your phone hangs, your computer hangs.
Yeah.
I mean, these are technology driven. So there are hitches, you know, that are not necessarily related to mischief. And we must be willing to give IBC the benefit of the doubt. I mean, you cannot preempt failure before we've had failure, you know. So we have been assured that, if anything, we've heard that if one Kim's system doesn't work, there's a backup of the same, you know, and we've been given the procedures. So I think it's important to be able to communicate that to the people so that people don't begin to panic when things are not
reading mischief into this
or
whole
read
thing.
mischief. And that's the other thing that you see. That's why, once again, those timelines are important, because you're able to test. You know, we haven't really run tests of these systems. So, you know,
they did the simulation?
Yeah, but, you know, that we didn't iron end-to-end issues. So that's what I'm saying, that those are the kind of things that come up when we don't keep with the timelines. And it raises unnecessary suspicion. Because, you see, I think while IBC have, you know, tried very much, you know, to assure Kenyans, there's also been, you know, lapses in communication. They have not been communicating very well. You know, 1 minute they give one statement and it immediately,
trust me. Let me tell you, I've had panels in here and guys have had an issue with the way IBC has communicated.
Their communication has not, they've not communicated well to Kenyans. And you see, when you don't communicate well, people fill in the blanks, you know, and they fill in the blanks with rumors and whatever, you know, because there's not proper information coming through. So these are just some of the challenges. But this is the one time that as Kenyans, we must, because even if things don't go as anticipated, there is no need for, people shouldn't use that as a cause to create chaos.
Okay,
or,
so,
you know, to engage violently. You know, we must be sober in our approach.
Okay, it's interesting that you say people
and not read unnecessary mischief.
It's interesting that you say people need to be sober, but I doubt the residents in Kisumu will be sober tomorrow when they go and they don't find their names there. And Alex, let me pick on you, because Chebukati, he's just spoken to our Yusuf Ibrahim right now, and he asked him about the scenario in Kisumu where some names are missing, and he says, we can't change the register. These guys should have verified before.
You see, again, on that same vein of reckless pronouncements, you know, Chebukati must take the bab on that. There is a better way to respond to that situation. Absolutely. And as Daisy said in the first segment, there was a requirement for them to publish this register so that people could go and peruse and then ask questions about whether, if their names are missing. He missed that window. Now he has a situation that is being raised generally by people who probably have a voter's card or whatever it is, and they're saying, my name should be on this register. I think there should be a more respectful, sensitive way to respond to these kinds of complaints and admit that there is a failure in the system, but not to say that you're not in the register, period. And again, as we say, this is how we start to flame passions. And then this is Kisumu. And as Desi said, you create an opportunity for people to read mischief of an intention to introduce malpractices and disenfranchise Raila's supporters. Now, it plays into that quagmire, and it's very difficult to extricate yourself out of that and say that it was an honest mistake. So, again, as we said, IBC has been astoundingly incompetent at communicating.
Yes, and this is why. And meanwhile, Ambassador, looking at the reaction that Chebukati just gave us with respect to the registered voters in Kisumu and the ones who are saying their names are not in the register, what better way do you think he could have or should have handled this?
Well, I don't know whether he was caught by surprise. I thought this thing has been on from the midday, I think today. He should have prepared himself to give a better diplomatic answer. Even saying we're going, like I think Chiloba said a little earlier, that we are going to look at it tomorrow when they are using the KIMS. But to come up with that categorical answer, because it looks like then the people that whose names didn't appear are out. Let them go and see if the names could be there. It's possible those names will be on the KIMS, but they don't appear on that on those papers that have been by in various polling stations. Yeah.
But I thought the names that have been printed out have been generated by the KIMS, so that the printout is actually a printout of the names in the KIMS. You know, for me, that's an unacceptable response. Elections are critical to our democracy. It is an expression of our democratic right. IEBC, as the electoral management body, have a responsibility to ensure that nobody is disenfranchised because of their carelessness, okay? It is also unacceptable that we are running one of the most expensive elections in the world, okay? And you're telling voters that if your name doesn't appear, voters have taken the time to go and register, because this, as Ambassador says, this is a story that's been running throughout the day. These voters, they have shown their registration cards. You recall that during the mass voter registration exercise, everyone who had registered in 2012 for the 2013 election was assured that their names were on the register. And we saw them holding up those registration cards, of which even I have, because I didn't register afresh. I registered at that time. So they're showing these cards. So these are not even new voters. These are people whose names ought to be in the register from that time. So you cannot, that is an unacceptable response from IBC, and IBC should be working round the clock to resolve that issue so that,
to make sure that
no
these guys can vote.
Voter is disenfranchised because of their carelessness. You know, because it is a lack of care on their side, because these voters did not erase themselves from the register.
No, but like you say,
so these are questions that we must ask, and this is only one area. What if we see it replicated in other places? Are we going to then say that, you know, they should have taken time to go and check, you know, verify their details? At what point did IBC make that register available to allow for Kenyans to do that? There's been a push. There's been a constant push to ensure that they actually publish this register on time. So the delays have been on their part and not on the voters' part. So on this one, and these are the kind of things that, honestly, as Kenyans, we must begin to interrogate these processes, because, Linda, please remember, last election, we spent about 9 billion shillings on BVR kits and voter identification kits that largely failed. Nobody has taken responsibility. There have been no penalties. So there's systematic failure of institutions to do what is required of them, paid by taxpayers, to ensure that taxpayers are able to enjoy their rights. And then at the end of the day, people get away with this on that score. I mean, and I'm not saying that IBC have done it deliberately, but they should have a team right now working round the clock to make sure that kind of thing doesn't happen.
But like you mentioned, there have been a lot of flip-flops with respect to the kind of communication that has been coming from IEBC. And the latest one is what happens to stamped and unstamped ballot papers. So you have Chebukati on one day saying stamped ballot papers shall be treated as invalid. And then on the other hand, again, he comes back and says, so there's just a back and forth. He counters himself. And then now, finally, we know that he said that ballot papers that have not been stamped shall be treated as invalid. So just on one hand, they will be invalid. On the other hand, they will be valid. Ambassador, in terms of communication, okay, where does this leave IEBC?
You know, I've said it more than once, actually in this studio, to say that the IEBC need to communicate with the people, to be briefing them on what is happening. And in terms of policy, you can't have the secretary saying one thing and the commissioner saying the other thing. It means there is also an internal problem of communication. They should be synchronized such that whatever information comes out of the IBC is actually representing the IBC, not the secretary going to say one thing and then the commissioners come to say the other thing. It does not reflect well to us, the recipient of that type of information.
Okay, so let's listen into what Chebukati had to say just a couple of minutes ago on Kisumu. Daisy, you need to listen to this.
Done trial runs. Remember, from 9th of May up to 9th of June, we did verification of voters using the same kits. 6 million Kenyans stand up and were verified. And they all gave us a success story. So in terms of usage of the kits, we are very sure that there will be no problem.
Yes.
Yeah, so...
And about those whose names are missing in the register, you've seen the demonstrations
No,
in Kisumu.
Still now going back to... That's why we said, let Kenyans be verified. That was the purpose of verification was, if you have issues with your names, you go and get verified.
Yes.
Now, the demonstrations in Kisumu on the issue of the register are coming too late in the day. We cannot change the register. Remember, the tablet, the KIMS itself is a register. Each of the KIMS in the 40,883 polling stations is a register in itself with the names of not exceeding 700 names of voters per polling station. So if your biometrics are not there and your biographics are not there, you'll not be allowed to vote. So those demonstrations are uncalled for. Those people should have gone to register early when we had the mass voter registration. They should have gone for verification. It's too late in the day for them to come out and demonstrate.
Okay.
If your biometrics are not there,
On the communication. I want to believe that IBC has got a spokesperson. There are some things that should be brought to us through the spokesperson because the chairman can find a way of correcting.
Okay.
But you see, when it comes to the from the chairman, it is in finality. Yeah. There's nothing else one can do about it.
So if it was someone else, maybe you would find a way of
you
going
can find
around
a way
this.
of playing about with it.
Alex.
You know, I understand his conundrum that it's too late in the day. But that does not exonerate him and his organization from this mess. You know, verification means you send a text and your name isn't there or not there. It is very different from inspecting a register and saying, I'm not on the register. That's a very different process. And I think this is what everybody has been asking. We want to see that role. We want to go to a polling station and then see, where am I listed? And then can I then vote? And where is the opportunity to seek remedy in that process? And of course, you know, going into the technical details and saying KIMS is a register, and all of that is not important. Where is the manual register? Because they talked about that too. These things were transferred to that electronic process from a manual register. Yes. Now, is that the master list? And could somebody go in there and find out whether these voters actually have their names in there, rather than dismiss them just as recklessly as he did on that clip?
Daisy.
You know, I think I've said all I'm going to say about this. I think that was a very inappropriate response from the chairman because of exactly what it means. Please remember that it is when voters have felt disenfranchised, that we have seen this country, you know, teeter on the brink of destruction. Because of that, you know, because people feel that either their vote has been criminally manipulated, you know, not so as not to reflect their decision, or people have been disenfranchised. Okay. So I just think that, you know, these are issues, you know, we really need to start looking at how we do things as Kenyans. Institutions, how the institutions that are tasked with certain responsibilities continue to fail us and get away with it, you know. The question must be asked, how did these names not appear there? Because as I've said before, these people, especially the ones I saw, you know, holding up the cards, you know, their registration cards, are not new voters. These are not people who registered during the mass, you know, some of these people didn't register during the mass voter registration exercise. So it could be an error on their part as the IBC in transferring names, you know, from the register to the KIMS, and therefore we need to find out, they need to be finding out why, they need to have a team. I mean, I would imagine that as part of their operations, they actually have some kind of disaster response team standby to be able to look into things like that. Why are people saying their names are not in the register? Can you try and find out what is happening? You know, something that it's a team that is there to deal with such eventualities. You can't just dismiss people wholesale. So just like the way we have contingency plans in the event of a disaster, that you will respond in this way, that IBC have actually anticipated that there will be those kind of challenges and that they have a standby team to actually address that you know, because those are the kind of things that then, you know, flare up emotions, you know, and trigger those responses that we don't want to see.
But Lisa, just to say one more thing, I think, you know, the point that Daisy just made and what Jack said is that where is the communication team? Now, who has the last word and who can do the damage control and the mitigation?
Have they even had that?
They don't have that because then, from what Daisy is saying, then you'd have expected that somebody would have gone to the bottom of this and said, why are their names not in the register?
Right.
Now, that's the communications guy. If they goof that, then Chebukati
can come in
and basically says, here's the reason. But then his people, IBC people, would have come back and said, here are the facts. The names are not on the register because A, B, C, D, and here's the mitigation step. Rather than Chebukati coming there with his executive hat and they're basically saying,
it's closed.
It's closed.
It's a bit of a lazy response as well. Because what are you saying?
You know,
so if my name is not there, I don't
I can't vote.
As I was telling Daisy before, as we're going out for the break, IBC seems to behave like an ad hoc committee that is not on a regular payroll. That is not an organization that basically runs our elections. What do they do between elections?
Okay. All right, so I want us to also talk about the issue of a couple of polling stations which do not have adequate mobile network coverage for transmission of election results. And that, trust me, has caused quite a storm, especially on social media. You're watching Kivumbi 2017. Allow me to take a breather. When we come back, we'll start our conversation from that point.